Hello and welcome to this special conversation of Nifty Inside podcast. This month, we are celebrating a very important milestone, 30 years of Nifty 50, India's flagship equity benchmark. The journey of Nifty 50 kind of mirrored the transformation of India's capital market systems. From a very nascent ecosystem, it has now grown as one of the most dynamic financial markets in the world. Alongside, we have also seen the evolution of the passive investing in India. But this transformation has not happened in isolation. Steady and long-term commitments from institutional investors, most notably investors like EPFO, Employees Provident Fund Organization, which is one of the largest pension and retirement fund in the world, played a very key and pivotal role in shaping this industry. To explore this journey, from where we started and from where we headed to, we have a very special guest with us today, the CEO of India's largest pension fund, the EPFO. We are going to discuss with him the past, the present, and the future of passive investing. We will also try and understand from him that how institutions will need to continue to play a key role in shaping up these industries further. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Ramesh Krishnamurthi in the show. Ramesh ji, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Anirudh. I am really delighted to be a part of this, I would say, flagship program that you are having, and glad that you mentioned that EPFO is one of the largest retirement and pension funds, not only in India but also worldwide. I'm very happy to be in this show. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So before I come back to you with my formal questions, I'll take some time to kind of introduce you to our audience. And for audience, Mr. Krishnamurthi is an IRS officer, and of course he is the Central Provident Fund Commissioner at EPFO. He is a 1992 batch Indian Revenue Service officer. He holds a BTech in Electronics Engineering from IIT BHU, Varanasi, an MBA from IIM Calcutta, and a Master of Science in Finance from Texas A&M University, USA. His research interest in Texas A&M was focused on supply chain management, e-commerce, industrial distribution, and ERP. During his tenure at Income Tax, he was responsible for initiating policy and technical matters related to the central processing of income tax returns and electronic filing of IT returns. He has played key role in shaping future business requirements for these systems. During his deputation period as Director Primary Markets in the Department of Economic Affairs, he had handled policy matters related to capital markets and was also a government nominee on SEBI committees. Mr. Ramesh Krishnamurthi also designed and managed the Central Processing Center, CPC as we know them, in Bangalore, which processes millions of IT returns and electronic filing of return projects, which facilitates online income tax filing. His professional interest includes systematic administration reform and leveraging technology for business and governance. Shri Krishnamurthi has been appointed as Special Secretary to Government of India with effect from December 2025. And before assuming the charge of Central PF Commissioner, he was holding the charge of Additional Secretary, Ministry of Labour and Employment. His extensive experience in economic affairs and taxation combined with his leadership roles in the Ministry of Labour and Employment and EPFO highlight his significant contribution to India's public administration. Mr. Krishnamurthi, welcome again.
Thank you so much.
So, Mr. Krishnamurthi, before we start discussing about the investment scenario in India, I would like to highlight one thing to our audience. And this is something that I picked up from your website, because your website says that EPFO is one of the world's premier social security organizations, and with a very large subscriber base, and continues to grow over a period of time. Now, this of course means a huge responsibility to the organizations and personally to you as well. While we all know about EPFO, but it will be really good to understand the mission, the vision of the organizations, and what are the key priorities of EPFO from your perspective.
So, Employees Provident Fund organization, I think for many of you who are not aware or who are only aware partially, is the formal sector's retirement provident fund administrator for the entire country. So, basically all the private sector employees who are interested in any kind of retirement planning through Provident Fund, the pension scheme, and we have also a deposit linked insurance scheme. These are the three schemes that EPFO administers, and through this we try to provide retirement opportunities for all private sector employees. As you're aware, most people associate pension with government, but then for private sector it is EPFO which manages this entire journey towards saving for retirement through Provident Fund initially, and also parallelly for pension, and in case of any unfortunate death or demise, they're also covered by the employee linked deposit linked insurance scheme. EPFO today manages close to 31.5 lakh crore worth of investment. It has over 8 crore active subscribers. We hold close to about 34 crore member accounts, and we have about 84 lakh pensioners whom we are servicing every month. So it's a large organization with a huge presence in the ground. We have close to 150 regional offices, 114 district offices spread all over the country. Our workforce is nearly 15,000 strong. This year, the year ended March 31st, we processed nearly 8.3 crore claims from members who wanted some kind of withdrawal from their Provident Fund or pension and things like that. So our topmost priority, number one, as you already pointed out, is obviously the safety and security of the entire investment corpus. We believe that we are probably the second or the third largest in the country after LIC and SBI, and it's a huge responsibility that we bear, and we want to make sure that the funds are invested very prudently. We follow the pattern of investment that has been laid out by Ministry of Finance, and last year the Central Board of Trustees of EPFO, they have announced 8.25% as the rate of interest for 25-26. Second big thing that obviously we are very keen to do is to ensure a very seamless, very smooth journey for the member through his life cycle. As you can imagine, a new worker joins the employment at the age of 23, 24, and he is with EPFO till he is superannuates, which is at the age of 58 or 60. So this 34, 35-year-old journey, we have to manage all the accounts, and we have to ensure that every year interest is credited for his Provident Fund account. And for people who are pensioners, we have to ensure that their pensions are paid on a monthly basis. This we want to make sure that his interaction with EPFO is smooth, without manual intervention, as far as possible automated. So that is our priority. The digital transformation of EPFO is the highest priority now for EPFO. Then we also want to make sure that our institutional capacity, our governance mechanisms are strong, robust, and we want to make sure that more and more private sector employees join EPFO. At the moment, our wage ceiling is rupees 15,000 per month. That means anyone who is earning less than that is mandated to be a part of EPFO. But anyone earning more than that, for him, it is voluntary for him to opt for EPFO for Provident Fund coverage. For pension, of course, the ceiling is 15,000 rupees. Now, 35% of our members are voluntary PF members, and we know that they have a choice. They can go for other investment opportunities, other retirement opportunities. Private sector offers other retirement opportunities as well. But we are very happy that they want to participate in EPFO. Our returns, which are 8.25% compounded monthly, are probably among the best in the country at the moment. It offers safety and security of their investment. So our emphasis now going forward is to make sure that we have a broad variety of other formal sector workers also joining in. So expanding coverage is also important. Recently the Code on Social Security has been notified, and that also talks about social security coverage for the unorganized sector. So people who don't have formal salary contracts, people like you maybe, but people like gig workers, people who are in other sectors which are not covered by formal wage contracts, they are task-based workers. Those are the kind of workers which are going to be covered under the Code of Social Security, and I'm sure that EPFO will play a large part in that. So that is also one large focus area for us. So I mean, I see the role of EPFO becoming even more important in the years to come.
Absolutely. Right. Now, when you talked about the scale, which is massive, and you also talked about some of the change that you're driving through, and I gather that digital transformation is one of them. But for the benefit of our audience, is there any other key priorities that you have set for the organizations now? So what's keeping you and your colleagues busy these days?
So as I said, our highest priority is member service. Last year, if you see, as I told you, we processed nearly 8.3 crore claims. We have done a whole lot of process re-engineering and reform and simplification of the entire withdrawal process. As you're aware, Provident Fund is a very unique kind of a retirement planning. It is mostly prevalent in Commonwealth countries. Most of the other developed countries have a very formal system of pension. Most of the retirement funds are pension oriented. But in India and in some few other Commonwealth countries, we have a concept of Provident Fund. The Provident Fund is also like a periodic saving. Every month from your salary portion, 12% from the employer and 12% from the employee is deducted and contributed to his Provident Fund. In turn, from the 12% that the employer deducts, 8.33% is diverted towards pension fund. Of course, if the wage ceiling is 15,000, anyone earning more than that is not covered by the pension scheme. So the entire 12% goes to the PF account only. Now, this is the corpus that keeps getting accumulated and hopefully builds the corpus for his retirement. So the primary focus for this organization has been to make sure that the interaction of the member has been smooth with EPFO. So all our simplification, all the IT initiatives, all the reform orientation is towards making his engagement with EPFO smooth. We have made large number of changes as far as KYC norms are concerned. For example, we did away with uploading of check leaves, instead went into digital verification of the bank account through NPCI. We have done a whole lot of simplification for auto settlement. I'm glad to inform all your viewers that last year nearly 71% of all the advance claims were processed in auto mode. So we want to make sure that is a priority for us. Second large priority is the increasing our coverage. And what do I mean by increasing coverage? We know that there are several employers and establishments all over the countries. People may not be aware of the legal requirements or the compliance requirements. There is always this issue of 15,000 as the wage ceiling. So we want to encourage more and more employers to start complying towards PF and expand coverage. As I told you already, unorganized workers is a big issue for us, and we want to cover them also in future. And at the same time, we want to make sure that our funds which we are managing are managed in a prudential manner, but at the same time giving the best possible return to the member. As far as Provident Fund is concerned, we do invest in equity, and we are trying to get better returns through equity diversification so that ultimately the member benefits from his investment in EPF.
So that kind of gives me the segue to get into our next segment, or maybe we'll just switch the gear a bit. So August 2015. So I mean, in many ways, that was like a historic moment because you took a historic decision at EPFO because you started participating in the equities market. But the interesting thing that you did is you have not participated directly through investing in direct equities. You chose ETF or rather a passive fund to access the equities market. So we'll talk about this entire thing, but can you take us back in the history and walk us bit about, so what was the context, what really happened, and what really triggered this decision?
So a very interesting journey for EPFO. For a long period of time, our funds were managed either by SBI or by RBI, and we used to invest heavily only in either fixed deposits or government securities. The pattern of investment also prescribed by the Ministry of Finance also had initially restricted investments such as of PF into these kind of securities, which is either central government securities, state government securities, and corporate bonds and things like that. But in 2015, when the Ministry of Finance also permitted investment in equity, that was a time when EPFO probably took a very calculated, very prudential move. But at the same time, EPFO wanted to participate in the long-term journey of India. So India's economy is booming. It is increasing. India aims to be Viksit Bharat in 2047. That would mean that the size of the economy is going to go up, and the capital markets reflect the growing aspirations of India. So it was definitely the time for EPFO to also participate in the capital market. As per the pattern of investment, EPFO is permitted to invest about 15% in equity. What is important for EPFO is are a few principles. The first is low impact cost and low cost of acquisition, low cost of management, high diversification, and low risk, without getting into too much of complexities of identifying individual equity or stocks for investment. At that time it was felt that ETFs is the right source for low cost investment in equity, and based on that the Central Board of Trustees at that time decided to invest in the two main equity indices that were there, both Nifty 50 as well as the Sensex 30, and ETF as a passive investment also afforded a long-term view for EPFO. So we were not in this for short-term focus. We were here for the long term. So it was decided that passive investment with a long-term horizon would be the best way to go forward as far as equity is concerned. So that was the background, and I think it has paid off very well.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure it has definitely paid off, I think. And you started at a very interesting time, and I think the Indian capital market has seen a phenomenal development since then. But just to go back on the same point, sir, once again, I mean, passive investment is fine, but you chose ETF particularly, and of course you mentioned about the cost aspects of that. But what are the other considerations that actually you used in terms of choosing ETF as a go-to-market strategy for your equity exposure?
So as I said, the most important thing, because of our scale, so obviously the underlying principle had to be sufficient liquidity in the secondary market, sufficient diversification, and proper representation of the entire sectoral opportunities across the entire capital market. So based on that, what we felt is that if you combine this with low cost and also passive investment, so the best opportunity was through ETF. So at that time, again, as I said, ETF brings the advantage of diversification, of sufficient liquidity. So these are based on market capitalization, some of the largest companies in the country. So there is sufficient liquidity in the secondary market for trading and for the AMCs to make sure that they are when they are manufacturing the units,
Absolutely.
they don't have impact costs.
Correct.
So I think these were some of the considerations. I think it was a very wise move at that time to invest in this manner.
Correct. And I think the other question that often comes in, and you mentioned about the liquidity as well, but now that we are seeing the entire passive industry, and thanks to EPFO, because you really brought in the patient capital that the industry needed for its initial growth. But now that we see that it is no longer a fringe investment product, a lot of institutions as well as a lot of retail and HNI investors have now identified this as a means of wealth generation, and they're not looking at that as a investment product per se, but they're also looking at a solution for the overall asset distribution and asset allocation. Now, I think my questions to you would be, there is a criticism that we have. While the AUM of the passive fund industry has grown over a period of time, and particularly even if you look at ETFs, we are almost like $100 billion industry now. But still, the secondary market is quite shallow. And I think many a times when the question is asked that, okay, how we can rather improve the secondary market, and people would say we should have EPFO coming and actively participating in the secondary market. What is your thoughts, sir, on this particular area? And also tell us if you have any plans to eventually take part in the secondary market. We would be love to hear your thoughts.
Very interesting question. See, as you are aware, as far as EPFO's participation in the ETF market is concerned, we are the biggest player. The size of the secondary market is very low. So it is obviously going to be a chicken or an egg. We are extremely cautious about impact costs, about costs to our members, because as you have understood, most of our PF subscribers are your blue collared workers. So every pie saved for them is a better return for them. So from that perspective, we feel that the impact cost is lowest when we operate in the primary market. If we go to the secondary market, there is obviously an element of a bit of shallowness in the market, which will obviously impact costs. So from that perspective, while EPFOs participates in ETF, keeping in view the entire development of the ETF market, I think your viewers should understand is if an institution like EPFO, which has got a total corpus of close to 31 lakh crore, is investing in ETF, that means it is also very good for you. It is good for each and every member who's trying to get into the stock market without having to really apply too much of his mind. If he's convinced about India's growth story, then ETF is the best way for him to also invest. So I think it is something like a kind of assurance or support that EPFO gives to this entire sector, and I think that is much more important for the growth of the ETF market. And I am sure that going forward, particularly as far as Nifty 50 is concerned, nearly about, I would assume about close to 30-35% participants are from the retail or HNI and other institutional sectors.
It is growing, yeah. It is.
So then I think it's just a matter of time when people also get used to this entire concept. And I think from a diversification perspective, from a cost perspective, I think ETFs are extremely, what I would say, a very stock market friendly entry point for most retail investors. So for a long term investor, I think this is the best way. And EPFO is constantly evaluating all kinds of opportunities that come about, and at any appropriate point of time, whatever is the point of time, how we approach the market is all going to be driven mostly by policy advice from the Ministry of Finance and our own considerations that we have. But as far as I would say our present way in which we have both invested in ETF as well as redeemed some of our ETFs, I think it has worked very well for us, and it has worked very well for our members, because we are able to give much better returns to our members because of the way in which we have invested in the equity markets.
All right. So what I gather from this essentially is that, of course, EPFO will act in the best interest of its subscribers and account holders, and you would wait for the market to assure you that they can help you optimize your transaction cost, and hopefully those are some of the motivations for EPFO to kind of reconsider to see whether the secondary market intervention would be the appropriate from the best interest of your account holder or not. So there is one more aspect I would like to touch upon, and that aspect is about diversification. Now, it's been over 10 years that your investment has been focused on the top 50 companies. A lot of people would argue that that might lead to a over concentration of the investments into some of the particular sectors or some of the particular stocks. Is there a thought process, or is there a, first of all, worry for EPFO at all? Or is there a thought process that you have right now to kind of look beyond the blue chip companies and investing into much more broad-based strategies?
Again, a very interesting question. As you know, EPFO today invests in two ETFs. One is the Nifty 50 and the other is the Sensex 30. Together, probably they account for market capitalization, which is in a majority. There are many other ETFs which are also there, but when we examine them from a depth, from a market capitalization perspective, from their capacity to absorb the kind of large transaction volumes that EPFO has, probably there is limited scope. What we do expect, obviously, is that for the market to grow. I think ETF market worldwide, if you see particularly what I'm told is that in US, passive investment is now nearly 55% of the total transactions that are happening. So I think India also, the market is expected to grow. If India is going to be a Viksit Bharat in 2047, obviously the capital markets will also expand multifold. The size of the economy is also expected to grow significantly. The $5 trillion economy is what is being spoken of. All that is a very gives rise to a very promising future, not only for the economy, for the capital market, but also for our own members.
Correct.
So as we go forward, as we said, the principles on which we started remain the same. We want to make sure that there is full transparency, very low costs. So that means the cost efficiency and cost effectiveness is paramount in our minds. Diversification is extremely important, and the same thing that you talked about, whether there is a risk of concentration, that is also extremely important. So if EPFO were to invest in other ETFs, we see that that risk as increasing, because those kind of market shares are probably not sufficient for us from the scale of EPFO operations. So I think it's a kind of an evolving situation. So that is how we see it.
So as and when the market liquidity will improve, then you will get a reassurance in terms of the more cost-effective execution strategies. Hopefully, those are going to be triggered for you to kind of rethink about your strategy. So one more aspect that we just want to quickly touch upon. I think when we look at the trajectory of India's passive investing, it's very similar to of the developed market. I mean, I think we also seen that usually the journey started with large institutions backing the industry, and then it becomes kind of a mainstay of the product investment strategies. How you look at our participation in India, particularly in the passive investment market, and particularly when you compare with some of your global peers?
As I told you, I think as far as India is concerned, ETF and passive investment still appears to be on the lower side, and particularly as far as if you look beyond just the Nifty 50 or the Sensex 30, the other ETFs have very low AUMs. They don't have sufficient capacities at all. But at the same time, I think it is an important area for growth in India. As I said, passive investment for the long term, particularly from a perspective of a young employee who's thinking 30, 35 years down the line when he is retiring. I think those are the kind of participants in the stock market who should consider passive investment very strongly.
Correct.
Because that over a long term, and that too given the fact that 20 years later we'll be a developed country. If you want to participate in that kind of a growth trajectory, you have to participate in the ETF without being worried about short-term volatility, short-term risks and ups and downs, which is very true of any stock market. So long-term retirement planning is very closely linked with a longer horizon for investment. And I think that is a way for India to go. And from that perspective, I see that this is a sector which is bound to increase.
Absolutely. I think I agree with you. And when we look at some of the data, that kind of reflects exactly what you're saying. I mean, while the retail participation still quite small in terms of the overall percentage of the AUM, I think last time when we looked at the data, the number of folios have grown significantly. I mean, if my recollection is correct, we have now almost 35 million of folios linked to ETF investments. A large number of these folios are, of course, retail people. But if you isolate and focus only on the AUM side, about 18 to 20% of the overall AUM, that is now coming in from HNI and retail. So what we understand now, slowly we are entering into a phase where possibly the investors are looking at the passive investments or ETF not only as a isolated product but as a solutions of the overall asset allocations. Now, so from your perspective, what do you think is important or what is needed in our country today to take this journey further, to make the passive investment even more successful?
I think when you talk about long term, trust, credibility is extremely important, because I think as any retail investor, they look, when they talk about, they have very short term horizons, but typically they will rely on an institutional intervention or a capacity, such as, say, for example, EPFO or LIC or SBI and other very trusted partners who have been there for a long time. For example, EPFO is over 72 years old. So its institutional capacity is very well known. As I said, the corpus that we manage is about 31.5 lakh crore. LIC is again of a similar pedigree. So, and we are the kind of institutions who are thinking long term. EPFO as a retirement corpus, we are thinking of today's young worker who's entering at the age of 24, planning for a nearly 35, 36-year-old journey before he superannuates. So this long-term journey requires a lot of staying power, institutional capacity, feet on the ground, credibility, trust, transparency, and good returns. I think if you look at all these factors, I think maybe the best way for the passive investment to grow is through such institutional players participating not directly into that itself, but through some institutional players. I think that is how I think it will grow.
Absolutely. And I think it will also require a bit of education for the retail audience. The thing that you mentioned, I 100% agree, is that a long-term investment mentality. And I think somehow, how do we make people convinced on that particular investment philosophy is also part of the overall challenge for the industry. Sir, we are now coming to closer of our discussions, and I think it's been a fantastic insights for me talking to you. I think I personally learned a lot about EPFO. We all know about EPFO, but very often we get to know and hear so clearly that what are the mission, vision of the organizations, what are the priorities with the organizations will work on. But what would be some of your closing thoughts? We talked about the investment philosophies of the individuals. We talked about how some of the challenges that we have related to secondary market of the passive investments. We talked about diversification, but I think the main key points here is that we would also need institutional support for this industry to continue to grow. So as a closing remarks, so what are the couple of things you would like to highlight, which in your view are extremely key from the overall development of this ecosystem?
So as I said, EPFO has emerged as a trusted go-to institution as far as most of the private sector employees are concerned. We would like to build upon that trust. We would like to make sure that our systems, our processes, our digital capacities are all state of the art, making sure that the services that we provided are best in class in the world, both in terms of accessibility, availability, what I would say ease of transactions, and also giving probably the best returns in the industry. If we do that, I am quite sure that more and more members are going to participate. As I said, it's 8 crore. We would like to see, if you look at India's population and working class population, while the formal sector is estimated to be about 15%, which is anywhere probably will be around 15 to 20 crore, there is a large chunk which is unorganized sectors. Now, if all that sections of society have to have a solid social security system and a retirement planning, then they have to come through a very trustworthy credit-worthy institution such as EPFO, and the Code on Social Security already mandates it. So our biggest, I would say, focus area today is to make sure that we build our institutional mechanisms to be able to absorb that kind of inflows, number one. Make sure that we are able to transact and invest this money that is going to come as provident fund or pension contributions from these members who are not only going to be formal sector but also informal sector. Give them avenues for easy contribution, make it easy for compliance to happen, make it as pervasive and as widespread as possible, so that every member, every citizen in this country somehow is associated with a retirement planning that EPFO is able to deliver. So obviously that means larger numbers of people, larger corpus, larger investment to be done. Obviously we are going to in turn participate more actively in the capital market. We already are very large players in government securities, state development loans. The SDLs are subscribed by EPFO in large numbers. We also have started participating in InvITs. So we see that our role in India's economy is going to be even more extensive, and it is even more going to be deeper and also diversified. So I think going forward, EPFO's vision is very clear. We want to make sure that every citizen is with us from a long-term perspective, from a retirement perspective, and we want to make sure that he is able to get the best possible returns, so that at the time when he is superannuating, he is able to live a life of dignity. So from a capacity perspective, also we want to strengthen our institutional capacities, and we are very clear in our minds that equity markets have a big role to play in the kind of returns that we can obtain for our members, and we are going to consistently participate in the ETF, so that we are able to give better returns to our members. So next, I think our vision is focused on digital transformation, IT-led governance changes, making sure that our investment is prudential but at the same time progressive, making sure that we get the best returns for our members.
That's fascinating, sir. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for speaking to us. It is indeed a delight talking to you and learning from you about EPFO, its vision, mission. You have helped us understand the thoughts behind some of the key decisions that you have taken, but also we have got some cues that how your thought process will navigate your investment decisions in the going future. So thank you very much, sir, once again for being with us and giving us the time. We wish you and all your colleagues at EPFO huge success, because we know EPFO's success means our success, because we are all going to be beneficial of your success. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Anirudh, for having me, and thank you all to all your viewers for patiently listening to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.